What's up everyone, Booty Noodles here, and today I have a brand new video for you, the first of hopefully many on my Spellblade, and it is a Surge Spark Charge build that I have been having an absolute blast with. You essentially just use your movement skill on almost zero cooldown by spamming your potions, which reduce your movement skills cooldown, and your surge applies spark charges, your mana strike applies spark charges, and then your lightning blasts that proc from your surge explode all of the spark charges all at the same time. So you surge through packs and everything just explodes. It is magnificent. It feels great. And I am super excited to share with you how this build works today. So you can check out the rest of this monolith here. I have a T4 Julra Kill, and then we will jump straight into how this build works and how you can build it yourself. So enjoy, and I'll see you in a moment. Alright everybody, so the first thing that we are going to talk about is our skills. Mana Strike is a super important part of this build. It's an amazing ability, unfortunately not as flashy as I wish it could be, but incredibly useful for all sorts of Spellblade builds, and especially ones where we're trying to apply spark charges. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come up over to the right here and take this node, which makes Mana Strike a ranged ability. Now, obviously, the sacrifice here is that we don't get as much mana gain, but fortunately, we don't need tons of mana for this build. And even though it is ranged now, it still counts as a melee attack for all intents and purposes when you're trying to apply, the more damage for spark charges applied by melee attacks. So even though it is ranged, it still has a melee scaling tag, which means that we get all the benefits of melee attacks from it. And that is a huge reason of why it works. And then obviously we take the auto target because that is just a huge quality of life feature for Mana Strike. Secondly, we're coming down here and we are taking Spark Charge chance. 100% Spark Charge chance to apply on all of our hits is great. It guarantees that every time we hit something, it is applying at least one Spark Charge to it. And so that is how we are getting kind of a lot of our damage as we're just running around maps, whacking packs of mobs real quick and then moving past them. And then past that, we're just improving our mana gain a little bit here. We can increase the area, increasing the mana gain a little bit more since, we do want to have some mana gain since Surge does use some mana. The second skill we could talk about here is our Surge. Now, there's a couple things going on here that are important to note. The first one is that we're coming over here and getting all of these nodes. Now, these are important because we cast Lightning Blast on arrival, and then this node casts 3 Lightning Blasts while traveling. So in total, every time we cast Surge, we are casting a total of 4 Lightning Blasts at least. And then this node here makes us go in kind of a zigzag motion, which is great because when you're going through packs, the zigzag motion kind of increases the number of mobs that you hit with Surge, which is important because over here, every time we hit an enemy, we have a 100% chance to apply a Spark Charge to them. So the more enemies that we can hit with Surge, the more Spark Charges we're applying, and the more damage that we are doing. And then finally over here, we are coming to just take invulnerability while surging. This is a great little defensive node here. Increasing the damage a bit, reducing the distance, and then we're kind of coming back over here and getting that distance back with this node. Finally, up here, dormant energy. This is essentially, we're just taking this. It makes Surge do even more damage. It's 10% more damage per stack, and this gives us ward. So, if we're at a maximum of 8 dormant energy stacks, this gives us 20 times 8 ward every time we cast Surge, which is a nice little ward boost. Secondly, we can talk about Lightning Blast because that is a super important part of this build. Again, this Lightning Blast skill tree is spec'd almost identically to, I think it is identical to my Dragoras Claw build. You're coming over to the top right and you're getting, you're maxing out your Spark Charge chance on hit. You're having it detonate your Spark Charges and having the Spark Charges applied by Lightning Blast deal more damage. Secondly, you're coming and you're getting your Lightning Aegis chance. This is a great defensive buff, and it gives you a little bit of increased damage, which is nice. And then you are adding 1 extra additional chains here. Now, this is a super important node because these extra chains do not work for us because we are not directly casting Lightning Blast, and therefore this node does not work for us. However, the reason we're taking this node at all is so we can get to closed circuit. And this is a super strong node. I think it's honestly probably overpowered, and people just don't realize how strong it is because this stacks an infinite number of times. So every time that we can get Lightning Blast to chain back to us, we are increasing our crit chance by 40% and our damage by 15%. And so even though, right now, my critical strike chance, my spell crit chance is only 73%, we are way over capping this as we're running around maps and hitting bosses because of all of the extra crit chance that we get from this node. And that's why this chain here is important because this allows it to chain, it goes to an enemy and then this node allows it to chain back and hit us, giving us this buff. Next skill we can talk about here is Frostclaw. This isn't really super important for this build, but it's worth talking about because you do get some damage out of it. And getting, you can also get your kind of ailments cleansed on cast, which can be nice from this node. Nothing super notable here. There isn't any weird mana juggling stuff like we're doing with our Rune Master builds. So, reducing the mana cost, chance to gain 12 mana on cast is nice. And then the ailments cleanse, splitting it into a bunch more projectiles is also very strong for just increased chance to apply spark charges and more damage. Here, retaliation chance. This actually procs more than you'd expect, and then ward gain on cast is kind of irrelevant since it's not casting that much. But then this is an extremely important node because you have a 30% chance on melee hit to cast Frostclaw, and that is how it is proccing anytime we hit something with our Mana Strike or our Surge. That has a 30% chance to cast Frostclaw. And then this converts spell damage per 3 melee damage. Not super important, but we do get some added melee damage from our passive tree and our weapon, so that's nice. And then we come over here for a little bit more reduced mana cost. And then up here, we are just coming and making sure we're converting it to lightning since we are doing all lightning damage. Now the reason we have Frostclaw even at all is mainly because we are running the Dragoras Claw Dagger, which gives us a chance to cast Lightning Blast on crit with Frostclaw. And so every time, we have a 30% chance to proc Frostclaw on melee hit. Every time we do this, we have a great chance to also proc some Lightning Blasts, which, again, can apply spark charges and detonate spark charges. And so it's just a great little added damage bonus there. Finally, we have Enchant Weapon, which the most important part of this is that it is giving us 50% melee attack speed, which is very nice. The faster you can attack with Mana Strike, the more spark charges you can apply. And then, a little bit of added melee lightning damage and increased melee lightning damage is okay. Again, most of our damage is coming from spark charges, which doesn't get this bonus, but, there's not a whole lot else that's super useful in this tree, so we come up here, and then we come down, increase the duration, reduce the mana cost, and then have it just automatically recast. And that is the skills. The next thing we can talk about here is the passive tree. Now I am not level 100, as you can see here, so I am going to actually just pull up last Epoch tools, and we'll talk about the passive tree here. Now, in the mage, this is pretty standard template mage passive tree. 8 points in intelligence. This is important for scaling spark charges, obviously. And then 2 points in here to allow us to get enough points to put 5 points into our increased cast speed bonus. And then 5 points here just for the crit multiplier and crit chance. In the Spellblade tree, we are taking increased elemental damage and elemental resistance. Nice kind of all around nodes here. Ward on hit with an elemental melee attack is great because we are, hitting a reasonable number of times with our mana strike and surge. And then we need to take 1 point in here in order for us to get some more points down here in the tree. But you could also, I don't know, throw it somewhere else if you want to. Arcane Shielding and then a Shattered Aegis are very great defensive nodes for us to take. Essence Duel is very important for the melee attack speed and ward gained on hit, which is very nice. And then we're taking 1 point here. The extra little chance to apply spark charges with lightning melee attacks is fine, because you can apply more than one spark charge on hit if you have, 150% chance to apply a spark charge. You're guaranteed to apply at least one spark charge, but you might, you have a 50% chance essentially to apply 2 spark charges. So we're only taking 1 point in here, though, because we do need the points elsewhere. We take 3 points in this node to allow us to get this node, which eventually allows us to get Blade Weaving. Now, Blade Weaving is super nice. We don't really need more than 5 stacks in it because we're not really casting Mana Strike more than 5 times before we use Surge. And so we're, anything past this, we won't really get the benefit from that too much. But this gives us 75% more damage to not only our surge, but also all of the spark charges that we apply with surge, which is a super strong buff. We take these for the intelligence and ward per second and ward per second per 10 intelligence. Again, great kind of defensive buff. This is extremely important for ward retention, as well as the 8-point bonus gives us the cooldown recovery speed for surge, which we love. And then 3 points in here for a little bit of extra spell damage. And we don't care about cast speed, so that negative part of that, it does not affect us at all. In the sorcerer tree, we're just taking 5 points in here. This gives us an absurd amount of spell critical strike chance. Without this node, I think I have less than half of the spell critical strike chance that I actually have now. We are stacking a lot of intelligence, and you get a lot of value out of this 5-point bonus. And then finally, within the Rune Master skill tree, the most important part of this is, this node gives us a little bit of less damage and health, which is great. We'll talk about why, having a little bit of extra health here or there is very important. We're taking this node, again, intelligence with the catalyst, very strong, and then you reduce bonus damage from crits is another great defensive node. And then over here, this is a super fun node because we get extra spell damage on the next spell and crit strike chance on the next spell, but that also applies to our movement skill. And since our movement skill is surge, we're getting a bunch of extra damage for surge. And crit chance with surge, which is a nice little damage buff. And so that is all of the passive skill points. And then finally, we can talk about the gear. Now, with Spellblade, one of the core parts is that you cannot generate as much ward as you can generate with a Rune Master. And so instead of trying to, generate tons and tons of ward, we are just going to go a low life build, which passively can give us a whole lot of wards. So by running Exsanguinous in combination with Last Steps of the Living and the experimental affix of On Gloves, where you convert your missing health into ward, you can passively have up to 6,000 to 10,000 ward, depending on how much additional health you have. And this is why it's important to kind of get a little bit of health where you can, because the more health you have, the more ward you generate, because it generates ward based on your missing health. So these are an important part defensively for us, but additionally, Exsanguinous is very strong because of it gives us up to 30% increase attack speed every time we use a potion. And we use a lot of potions because on our belt, it's amazing for this build if you can get this 2 to 2.5 seconds of traversal skill cooldowns recovered on potion use. If you have this node on your belt, you can chug potions and almost entirely eliminate the cooldown of Surge. So you can just Surge over and over and over again and get all of those bonuses, all the extra damage from the spark charges. You can detonate the spark charges, cast Lightning Blast 4 times every time you use Surge, so on and so forth. We get a huge bonus from that extra attack speed as well. Additionally, because we are scaling spark charges, Fragmenting the Enigma is a super core part of this. It gives us flat damage for spark charges based on intelligence, as well as a huge more damage multiplier for spark charges applied by melee attacks. And we are applying all of our spark charges pretty much with melee attacks, with the exception of the ones applied by Lightning Blast. However, Lightning Blast does have its own more multiplier for spark charges that it's applied to. So all the spark charges we have a huge amount of base damage and a ton of more multiplier, and a lot of that is coming from this. And so that is why we try and get intelligence on all the gear that we can get it on. So I am running a Bone Clamor with intelligence on it because Bone Clamor has a bunch of flat intelligence already on it. It can help our ward scaling a little bit. And from this helmet alone, you can get up to 29 intelligence, which is just amazing for this build. We are running the Draggrass Claw because of obviously the Lightning Blast chance on cast with Frost Claw is very nice. It has a spell crit multiplier built into it. It has all resistances built into it, and importantly, also it has flat critical strike chance, which applies to both spells and melee attacks, which is very important for this build. And because some daggers only have melee critical strike chance, and that is not good for this build. And then as far as legendary affixes on this, crit multiplier is the most important one, followed up by melee attack speed. And then if you can get shred armor or lightning penetration as your suffixes, you will be gold. Although I don't actually think you can get lightning pen on daggers, so just shred armor is mostly what you'll be focusing on. For legendary affixes on your body armor, you're looking for, again, tier 7 intelligence, and then lightning crit multiplier. Alternatively, you could also go for a chance to apply spark charges on melee hits. And then, on suffixes, health is great for survivability if you have, a 3 LP one. Crit multiplier is mostly the only thing that's really important for you on the Fragment of the Enigma. However, getting resistances or increased lightning damage or elemental damage or spell damage is also fine, but unfortunately you can't get melee attack speed on a offhand catalyst, so you just go for the percent increased damage there. On your amulet, having a Jade amulet gives you the increased melee attack speed, which feels great. And then crit multiplier and lightning penetration are probably your two preferred prefixes, with armor shred and then maybe a resistance as one of your suffixes. On your rings, tier 7 intelligence is the most important part. I went for critical strike chance. You could go for cooldown reduction on these as well, which would probably be an equally strong substitute. For the belt, again, we talked about the cooldown recovery skill on potion use. However, this belt can be very expensive at any level, so you can kind of make a budget version of this if you just use if you can find an Osparian belt. It has 6 potion slots, and then you put this seconds of traversal skill cooldowns recovered on potion use. Having 6 potion slots is plenty most of the time, and you get a bunch of increased chance to find potions. So You might have to, go and pick up potions a little bit more than usual, but that is a fine substitute if you cannot afford to get, a 1 LP Jungle Queens with the Traversal Skill cooldown recovery bonus. On your gloves, and cooldown recovery speed is probably the strongest base you can get for this because we want to lower the cooldown of Surge as much as we can. And then Tier 7 Intelligence is the most important affix. Then melee attack speed, and then a bunch of health, which increases the bonus that you get from the sealed affix here, which is an experimental affix on the gloves. Again, converting your missing health into ward. The boots, pretty much the same deal. Tier 7 intelligence would be the most important stat, followed up by getting, frenzy after you use a traversal skill. This feels great because we're casting surge so often. You'll have pretty much permanent uptime on frenzy. You don't even need this to be tier 6. Maybe even tier 4 or tier 5 would be enough because of how often we're casting surge. And then, frenzy gives us melee attack speed, which again feels very good. And then on your relic, you are just looking for levels of surge and then intelligence as the second prefix. Your base, you actually want this base to be a elemental critical strike multiplier. This is going to be your best in slot. And that is pretty much all of the gear. For the blessings, again, pretty straightforward. Crit multiplier from the Black Sun, armor from the Blessing of Age of Winter, all resistances, chance to shred lightning resist. All of this is pretty straightforward in what you would expect for this build. So that is the skills, the gear, and the passive trees. So we can quickly talk about how you are meant to actually play this, which is very simple. You run around and you can cast your mana strike on everything. It's you hit this and then you're guaranteed to apply spark charges, and then as soon as you have your surge, you can use it. Your potions can reduce your surge cooldown, so you can use it a whole lot of times, and that is it. You really only need 2 buttons. You have your enchant weapon automatically casting as soon as it's off cooldown. You never have to cast lightning blast. It's always just procced from your surge, or the frost claw procs from your melee attacks. And I just have snap freeze on my bar because it's a nice little CC ability that you can use on bosses. So yeah, that is the build. I hope that you guys enjoy this. I'm having a great time with it. I think it can scale reasonably well to like 400 or 500 corruption, which is, great for a Spellblade. And I'm super excited to start putting out some other Spellblade builds, hopefully with a Flame Reave one coming at you soon. So I hope you have fun. Stay tuned. Make sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel a whole lot. And I will see you next time.